Hi, I'm Julie McCluskey, Summit School District Director of Communications and Community Engagement, and we're here today with another Summit School District Spotlight with a focus on technology in Summit schools. I'm joined by Bethany Massey, our Director of Assessment and Technology, as well as Chris Hall, our Summit High School Media Specialist. And we're going to talk not only about what's happening in Summit schools today with technology, but also some of our very exciting plans for the future. So Bethany, let's start by talking about technology in Summit schools. I think we in the district as educators use that word quite a bit. If I'm talking with a parent or community member, how would you describe technology in our schools?
So for us, technology is kind of two pieces. There's the actual hardware that comes into a classroom. So in our school district, we have everything from iPads and Chromebooks to laptops. We have desktops, a lot of those different diverse tools that kids can use. And then we also have the side of technology that we talk about, which is the instructional side. So whether it's software, it's the skills that students are learning that we really focus on. And so that's really what we oftentimes are referring to when we talk about technology, is how are kids learning technology skills that they can be applied throughout life.
I love this. Interesting that we use both Apple products and other products, laptops. I know there's a real, everybody has kind of their own preference, what works best for them. Why do we do that in Summit schools?
So there's actually several different reasons why, but a lot of times it has to do with using the right tool for the right reason. And that's really what we want to focus on. So sometimes there may be a need for using a device that's real easy to use, especially when you're talking about little kids. So picking it up, taking a picture, those gross motor skills versus fine motor skills. And then when you get to the higher levels, especially at the high school level, you may need to do some researching online, you may need to do keyboarding. So it's, again, the right tool for the right purpose.
I like that. So developmentally appropriate.
Yes.
Where we might have tablets for kindergartners. I've heard we have kindergartners blogging even, all the way up to our seniors at the high school who are using often their own personal devices in classrooms because of the demands and what they need to be doing as students in the district. Talk about some of that instructional technology in a classroom. How exactly does a classroom today look different maybe than a classroom from when I was a student and didn't have computers available, didn't have smartphones, didn't have a lot of the devices we have today? What's the difference?
So again, it goes a lot back to those skills, and I'm using technology for a tool. It's not just technology for technology's sake. And so if you think about technology for us, we sat down in a computer lab, we worked on our typing skills and how fast we could type, those kind of pieces.
I remember an electronic typewriter, manual typewriter. That's how I learned keyboarding. You two are much younger, you didn't do that, but I did. So yeah, I get that, okay.
And so now really that shift is how are we using it to extend the classroom walls. So we have teachers who are using technology to, like you said, blogging. We had a teacher talk about how their students were actually connecting with family members who lived overseas. So it was fun because then the family could check in and see all of the different things that the kids were doing in the classroom. We can bring in experts into our classrooms because of these experiences. And then it's also teaching that safety and ethics online, because that's a whole new element that we didn't really deal with as kids. So
Sure.
Just that knowledge and awareness of everything that is out there and how to use it appropriately.
I do want to ask you a question about cyber safety or internet safety. We've spent some time in the district providing education to both our students and families about the use of the internet, making sure that students are accessing safe sites, that they engage with others via the internet on their smartphones, talking in a safe way, making sure they're not sharing personal information. And then of course social media, which I think is becoming a world that's growing faster than many of us can keep up with. We know that our students, particularly at the secondary level, are engaged and communicating with each other and the rest of the world. And I know not on Facebook and Twitter anymore, it's Instagram or it's Snapchat or it's about 12 other social media sites that I'm not aware of. But how are we making sure kids are safe? I think that's a very fair concern from our parents.
A lot of it is education. There are pieces that we do put in place in the district, such as filters and some of those pieces, but a filter's not going to get everything. It's all about teaching the kids how to handle those situations, what you should and shouldn't be doing with devices. And then it's also a parent education piece. It's okay to ask questions about things that are on the computer. It's our responsibility as parents to keep our kids safe. So what are we doing in the home to set up those home environments to filter out some of those things that we wouldn't want our kids to be a part of?
Awesome. And I do want to plug that coming in November, we will be having a parent forum where we talk about internet safety and ways to protect your child in the cyber world.
Yes.
So thank you for that. Chris, let's talk about the really exciting things going on here at Summit High School with technology. I jokingly said earlier that, our libraries are not our grandma's libraries anymore, right? When I went to the library as a kid, it was all about just my little library checkout card and the Dewey Decimal System, right? That's what you learned when you went to a library, was how to check out a book. Our libraries are something entirely different now. So tell us what you're doing here at Summit High School.
Well, we still have the Dewey Decimal System.
No!
You don't need your library card. But, back to technology, when you come into the library, you can see kids in the cozy corner where we have bean bags, or they might be by the fireplace, or they might be at a table, but it's very, very diverse where they can have a Chromebook, they could have a laptop, they might have their phone, they could use a Mac, they could use a PC, so the platforms are very diverse.
Wow.
I still have books, but we have databases for the kids that we subscribe to. So in my teaching of classes, we talk about the databases and how we get reliable sources, and not everything on the internet is safe and true.
Yes, yes, good.
So, I think the biggest change from Grandma's library is just when you walk into the library, it's kind of a little buzz. Kids are working on projects, they're reading Kindles, but it's not this quiet, don't talk or you're going to get in trouble. It's this bzzz, and kids are really actively engaged. I had a little girl come in with a parent, and as they were leaving, she said, "This isn't the library. This is the Loudberry." So
that's great.
The Loudberry is it might be loud, but I'm hoping it's constructive, and kids are actually being productive.
Yes, and we've talked about those 21st century skills, which I think gets bantered around a lot, both in media and education circles. But when we talk about those, we're talking about communication and collaboration. And I think that's what we're seeing, is that the library is now this center for collaboration, where students are not just there on their own being quiet reading a book, but they are finding ways to learn with each other. That's incredibly powerful. Mm-hmm. We're very excited, Chris, that you were honored this year, and the school was honored with the a state award, the Highly Effective Libraries Award, and the Colorado Department of Education provides that to select libraries around the state. Tell us what sets you apart from the typical school library here in the state of Colorado.
I did the paperwork.
Good.
It is a program you apply for, an award you apply for, and so there are 22 different standards, and you have to show how you are meeting or exceeding those standards. And then I had to do a multimedia presentation showing what I'm doing at my school. You set goals. So you apply, and then there's a committee who goes through your application, and they decide if you are highly effective or not. Susan Ahrens at the middle school is a highly effective librarian, and so is Shelley Wasson at Summit Cove.
Yes, and we are excited that all three of our schools over the last couple of years, those three schools, have received this award, and I anticipate that we will see others now in the future. Tell us a little bit about those standards, Chris. What specifically are the standards that you have to meet for students?
Well, like I said, there are 22, and I cannot remember all 22, but when I highlighted mine, like leadership is one, professional development, collaboration, curriculum development. So those were some of my strengths. They talk about scheduling, and so what they're looking for are libraries that have a flexible schedule, so teachers can come in, or the librarian can go into the classroom to help.
Oh, wonderful.
As opposed to a very fixed schedule when I can't come, I have a class at that point or whatever.
Sure, and I think that speaks to collaboration. Not only are our students collaborating, but you are collaborating with staff and helping provide the right resources and that technology in the classroom that we were speaking to, and how important that is.
Technology, what Bethany was saying, my job for the most part is helping with the software component. How can I integrate technology into the curriculum? How can I integrate it into lesson plans that the teachers are doing? But I also, if a teacher is having issues, I'm there to troubleshoot and make sure that all their hardware is running properly.
Wonderful. So I bet you get 20 calls a day, just help. It's not working. Yeah.
It all depends on the day.
Let's talk a little bit about something that I think our parents in particular are seeing much more of. And I'm going to throw out a couple of names, but I know the two of you might have more. Google Classroom or Edmodo, where we have virtual classrooms that our students are participating, whether it be with assignments or discussions. Can either of you tell us a little bit about what that looks like and what that means for classroom learning?
So it's actually used in many different ways, and I'll let Chris speak to this as well, because she's had a lot of working with the blended learning and online learning here at Summit High School. But it's a platform that you can do face-to-face and have students jump in and be united in the curriculum they're doing, or you can also have that flexibility to have some online learning outside to extend the classroom day and the learning beyond the 8 to 5 that you might would have a student. So that's the power in it. The other piece that's really powerful about those online pieces is the bringing the elements of the web into them. So again, bringing in those outside resources that you may not have had easily accessible now are embedded in there. You also get a lot of that collaboration because there's discussion threads where I as a student may respond to this article because I found something really inspiring in this article, and then Chris may follow up and say, well, I found this piece, and she can respond in that virtual world.
Great, so a lot more interaction, opportunities for students outside of the four walls of a classroom to be talking and working with one another. Chris, what would you add?
It's available 24/7. So if a student is absent, all they have to do is go to their Google Classroom, and there it is. And the great thing is it brings up all the assignments. So for all the teachers who are in Google Classroom, they can go, oh yeah, that's due, that's due, that's due. So it's kind of one-stop shopping for the kid, for the student. So there's no excuse for a late assignment anymore. There's no excuse, I couldn't find it. Well, there it is. Everything is there for them at all times.
Wonderful. How do we deal with the students that don't have access to devices at home?
Well, most of the kids have phones.
Great.
And phones can get to the Google Classroom.
Great.
So it's the Wi-Fi. So, I mean, truly, if a kid didn't have a phone or a device, then I try to make sure that the library is open so they can finish their assignments after school. They can come in during lunch. They can come in the morning.
Excellent.
They could go to the public library. I mean, there are places that they can go. And then if a kid doesn't have a computer but needs one, then we'll loan them a Google Chromebook for the evening, just so that they can do their homework.
That's great. So our students we are getting to that point where students are completely empowered to be able to access the information they need. The learning is that much richer for what we're doing with technology in the classroom. It's all very exciting, and congratulations,
Thank you.
Chris, on your award. We're very proud, and certainly I'd love to get more of our community, parents and or community members in to see the good work that you're doing.
They're welcome anytime.
That's wonderful.
To the Loudberry.
To the Loudberry, where we talk too much. I love it. In just a moment, we'll be talking about the future of technology in Summit School District and the very ambitious and exciting plans we have ahead. Hi, I'm Julie McCluskey, Director of Communications and Community Engagement for Summit School District, and we're back talking more about technology in Summit Schools. I'm joined by Bethany Massey, our Director of Assessment and Technology, and we've just been joined by Dave Miller, a school board member now with us for 4 years.
4 years.
Just wrapping up, and also a program officer over at Keystone Science School. And we want to talk about next steps with technology in Summit Schools. So Bethany, maybe we should start with the brand new Vision 2020 plan. This is the district strategic plan. We've been working on this for a year with our staff, our students, our community partners and parents, and asking them what's a priority for the future. And one of our goals in particular revolves around technology, STEM, and blended learning. So maybe you can talk about those 3 areas and what's next for Summit Schools.
Love to. So I think the important thing with that is to focus on the why we want to implement these things. When we went into the community and we look at what we want students to be prepared to do, we really want them to be prepared to have competitive technology skills, competitive life skills, competitive knowledge. And so when we talked about how are we going to get them there, these are kind of those methods to get them there. So integrating technology into the classroom doesn't, again, have to do with the tool. It has to do with how you're using those tools to empower yourself. And then it has to do with science, technology, engineering, and math, those platforms in which we can hit on skills that maybe provide career paths that students hadn't explored.
Sure.
And then, the blended learning. So much of what students are going to experience is that lifelong learning in a dual platform. So it's not always going to be face-to-face, whether it's post-secondary, whether it's, whatever their career path is.
Sure.
So I think the why is always important. We're really looking at what are we going to do to prepare our students to have that competitive edge. And then as far as what we want to do with those different pieces is really talk about what that looks like in the classroom. How do we extend those learning opportunities? What does that mean from the little ones, the elementary age, all the way up through the 12th grade? So how do we embed that into the learning experience for students?
That's powerful. As I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about something I often hear, that we are preparing students for jobs that haven't even been created yet, right?
Yes.
And particularly with technology, knowing what's going to be the next great invention or the great next platform for us to communicate, or a piece of technology that revolutionizes how we do medicine, how we do any one of a number of different fields. It's a little daunting to think about that future for our students. You also talked about science, technology, engineering, and math, or STEM. We often refer to STEM in the district. And then blended learning, which is really utilizing the internet technology in your learning, but also the blended part, human beings as well, right? That it's not all done online. I think we have started to use those terms so often that even I get a little bit lost in what they all mean, but exciting stuff nonetheless. Dave, as a member of our technology committee, as a leader in the district, talk a little bit about why you think these things are important for Summit students.
Technology within Summit School District is just so important right now. It's so exciting seeing the things that are happening in the classroom and how technology is being used. At first glance, you're like, all right, computers are going into the classroom, and that's great, and kids are punching away on keys, and that's something that I never did in school. And when you go and observe, they're using it in such a meaningful way. And you talked about preparing students for jobs that aren't even created yet. And I think that's where it's identified as just such a need right now. The communication that happens in everybody's world, in the professional world, on a daily basis can happen now in the classroom. I mean, just today I was working with somebody in California and working together on a document, and you're sharing it back and forth via email. Then we went on to Google Docs and we were sharing it, and then seeing students doing that in real time, it's like, wow, that is 21st century learning. And that's just where it's so exciting and so important.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate your enthusiasm for this, Dave. Tell us a little bit about STEM. I think you've been also a strong advocate for how the district is implementing STEM, still in our infancy, and learning what STEM means in this district. I think we have a lot of different pathways even that kids are taking as they explore these 4 fields and start to understand the design thinking process. But as a community partner with the Keystone Science School, how do you see STEM evolving in the district, and why do you think it's important?
Yeah, and STEM isn't just science, technology, engineering, and math. We talk about 21st century learning and communication, and I see STEM being able to happen within the elementary ages in interdisciplinary education, in bringing in the design thinking process and really just creation. How do we create things? How do we think about? How do we design? And technology is a great tool within that design process. And then as students get older and working towards middle school and high school and eventually college, we're working towards creating a plan where there's many more pathways. And so the big focus right now is we know that technology is being used everywhere in many career fields. I mean, auto mechanics, I can't work on my own car anymore because I don't have a computer smart enough. Yeah. And I don't have the tech savvy enough to make it work. And so that's where for every career pathway, we want to make sure that that door is open for students so that they can go into a field of coding or they can work on being an auto mechanic.
I love it. And you're so right. Technology touches so many different facets of our life now. It's, and every type of technology. I think one of the issues that we've talked about in the district, and maybe at the crux of this, we're starting to talk about a technology one-to-one device model. And Bethany, if you could describe that a little bit, and then why that's so important to our kids.
Sure. So one thing to clarify is the 1-to-1 is a ratio that we often use the language in education. So it's that 1 device per 1 student. And what is the benefit of that is having the devices at the hands of the students means that we can all be online, all be doing things at the same time, versus older models in which maybe there was just a projector in the classroom and the students are having to just watch the teacher facilitate the learning. So now the students are actually digging in, they're being able to implement those innovative activities, they're being able to create themselves. And so that's the power of the 1-to-1 model.
And I'm going to stop you because you're right, I skipped right ahead, not thinking about explaining that, but we're talking about every single student, 3,400 students, all having a device. Even our kindergartners, every kindergartner in class having a device, right?
We would love it, yes, definitely.
And yes. But why, right? Because I can hear in my own head, wait a minute, what about crayons? What about paint, right? What about learning how to write? Is it okay that we're putting electronics in the hands of our kids so early?
Yes, and it's all about the right tool for the right purpose. Again, so there is a time for using a pencil. There is a time for using the technology. It's all about what are we doing, what are we trying to teach the students, and what's the right tool for the job.
Great.
And so that's the importance of it.
I love it. So 1-to-1, let's talk about what technology 1-to-1 means and a term that is often out there in our community called digital divide. The digital divide, the haves and the have-nots. How would 1-to-1 impact our students?
So the benefit of that is when you have the digital divide of, some students have 5-6 devices in their home, and then other students may have 1 or not any. Now the power is when I have a device that's assigned to me by the school, I start a project at home, I can take this home and I can work on it at home. So again, it's that extending the learning into the home and making sure that the kids have the tools to be successful to do that. Right now, oftentimes we have projects that get started and get going, and we may not think about, do they have the access beyond the school day to be able to finish this? Not just the supports, but the tools, the resources. And so by providing those one-to-one devices that students could actually bring home with them, we've ensured that they do.
I love that. It's very powerful. Dave, anything to say about the digital divide or what it means for all kids to have a device?
Yeah, I think it would create a lot of efficiencies in the classroom as well. It's one thing to throw in a bunch of devices into the classroom. People always want to donate different devices to the classroom and even to the science school. And if a teacher had to work with an iPad, a Chromebook, an old laptop, that means it's not a level playing field. And it's also not efficient for a teacher to be able to troubleshoot every single issue.
Sure.
And so that way they can work with everything. It really gives everyone the opportunity to practice their skills, practice their communication, and just keep, when we talk about all those pathways, keep all of those pathways open, no matter where a student is from or how they're learning.
I'm thinking of my own learning as an adult learner, right? When I take a laptop or an iPad to a conference or a workshop, I often find myself, exploring something the instructor just said, or taking notes, or, contacting somebody back in the workplace to ask a question that's relevant. I could see how for a student, suddenly they're in charge of their learning with a device that gives them some freedom and helps them explore and learn at their own pace, with their own style. It's exciting.
It is.
I love it. From the school board's perspective, Dave, what have been the conversations about both the technology one-to-one model as well as some of the other Vision 2020 goals that Bethany's talked about?
I think the biggest thing that we talk about is, wow, it's great. We have to do this. It would be great for the school district and the students would be learning more. From the school board perspective, it's really, okay, how do we make this happen? Do we have enough resources? And so that's largely a lot of the conversations. How do we make it happen? We know a bake sale isn't going to make it happen. Standing out and just holding a tin can, it's not going to make it happen. So there's a lot of conversations, just, budget, how much does it cost? And is it a phased approach or is it kind of the big splash? I think ultimately what the tech committee has proposed and what we see is that big splash, everybody getting a one-to-one device and getting it at the same time and training teachers how to use it.
Yes.
And that's another big expense and time is just training teachers because, we haven't always taught with all of these tools. It's relatively new, and thinking about Google Classroom, and I'm playing with that myself at Keystone Science School, and it's not easy. So I definitely applaud the teachers that are using all these tools and using them effectively in the classroom.
No, that's terrific. I'm thinking of myself. I'm thinking of my mother-in-law, who at the age of 89 went and took a community college class on how to use a computer. And I so admired her for doing that, right? And then I scolded myself because I'm not doing enough to stay on top of all the ever-evolving technology and what we need to know, especially to teach our kids.
It's true. My mother's a regular at the Apple Genius Bar.
Ooh, I'm impressed. We could start our own Genius Bar, whether it's Apple or another device, we'll have our own place to come, and that's good, Dave. Anything else, Bethany, that you want to share about the Vision 2020 for Summit School District, whether it's the technology one-to-one, hope and dream, what we're making a reality, or STEM or blended learning? Anything I haven't talked about?
I think all the work that the teachers are currently doing, even though we are not in a one-to-one environment in all places, we are in pockets. We have several schools that have gone one-to-one. These schools are doing some pretty amazing things with those devices in the classroom, and they've seen the improvements. Summit Cove recently did a presentation in which they showed data that showed that the scores actually improved for their students once they implemented one-to-one in their classrooms. And so that's exciting. We also had the opportunity to start off the school year with some professional development for our teachers, in which other teachers demoed what they were doing with the technology in the classrooms. And it was very powerful to see the ways that our teachers are making a difference for our kids with these tools. So it was very exciting and encouraging, and we're ready to make it happen.
I love it. And you're right, we need to celebrate all of the good work that is going on in the district, and the fact that we are moving forward. the big splash. I like how you described that, Dave. I do think that's important. Again, that digital divide, making sure that everybody has access and is ready to go. Dave, anything else you'd like to add, just around technology, being on the tech committee, or from the school board perspective?
You know, I think the last thing that the school board has really been talking about are just around the resources, but then how to implement this, because it's not just throwing devices into the classroom, and that's been a big part of the conversation, and something that teachers are working very hard, and there's a lot of resources and planning that has been going in on how to implement a one-to-one classroom. And those schools that do have one-to-one, you know, that didn't happen overnight.
Right.
And so that was a very hard work by all the teachers and the schools that have done it. And the data is there, you know, and so students are learning more, and when it's implemented correctly, students learn and they achieve more.
No, great point, Dave. The reason we're doing this is to drive student achievement. And if we're not doing it for the right reasons, or we're not doing it effectively because we didn't plan or execute the plan well, obviously we won't see those results. So thank you, good perspective. And as you were talking about teacher training, I thought about parent training, right? We are going to do that too, yes. Right? Because otherwise I'm in trouble. I need to see that too. Thank you for joining us today and our conversation about technology. You can reach myself, Bethany, or Dave at Summit School District, and watch in the near future for more information about our Vision 2020 strategic plan and our exciting new progress with technology in Summit School District.